Welcome back to Observing the Sabbath. I'm Nathaniel Molnar. So we have finished our entire look, everything to do with the original Black Sabbath album. All the reaction commentary videos are up on the channel. You can check them out there, as well as our podcast episode compiling all those videos into 1 hour-long podcast episode, as well as your thoughts and your comments read out loud in a video up on the channel. So now we are done with Black Sabbath, and we are moving on to the next album from Black Sabbath, and that is Paranoid. And this is probably one of their more popular albums out of all of them. I think a lot of people hold Master of Reality and Volume 4 as maybe the best, but I'd say the most popular might be Paranoid. This also came out, originally released at the very tail end of 1970, and then kind of was released in the United States in January 1971. I hold it more as a 1970 album because that's when it was originally released, so that's kind of what I'll refer to it as. So Paranoid came out the same year as their self-titled album, which is crazy to me that they put out both of these albums, 2 albums that are as well regarded, highly regarded, and well known as they are, both in the same year, and they both have different, distinct, radically different feels to them in tone and theme and subject matter. It's really interesting how different these albums are for being recorded and put out in the same year. Or rather, Black Sabbath was recorded the very tail end of 1969, but in the same time frame, in the same area. So the same time that they were live sets, they were performing Black Sabbath, they were also performing a variation of War Pigs. And now we have this album. Originally, Paranoid was going to be called Walpurgis, which was I forget which language, but it means war pigs. And so it was going to be based around that, which is why you kind of get the album cover doesn't exactly fit Paranoid. But it's an interesting album cover. I really like it. And similarly to Black Sabbath, this album was recorded as a live set. So with Black Sabbath, instead of doing like a more traditional recording, they had 2 days in the studio. They recorded with 1 day and just played through the live set and recorded that and then mixed it on the second day. I don't know for sure if they only had 2 days in the studio or not, or if they had a little bit more time with Paranoid, but they recorded it in a similar way where they just played their live set and they recorded it that way. It wasn't really until Master of Reality that they really started playing around with things and fine-tuning and trying new things with the recording process. So Paranoid has a similar kind of consistency feel that Black Sabbath did, although not exactly the same. So I'm not going to say anymore. We're going to dive right into War Pigs. I will say, though, that as I say at the top of every video, this is not a reaction video in that I'm listening to this for the first time. I know all Black Sabbath songs. I've listened to them hundreds of times without hyperbole. So if you're looking for a reaction video, someone listening to this for the first time, this is not that video. But rather, I'm just going to give you my thoughts and my commentary as we listen to War Pigs. So without any further ado, let's dive in. This is War Pigs / Luke's Wall. And now. Fantastic opening. It's a great opening to the album as well as the song. And I love the sirens in the background that come in a minute. There they are. It really sets the stage for this whole song. And I feel like so much is ultimately added, because you could have just started the song with this next part, where it's like, da-da, you could have started there, but I feel like having this little bit in the very beginning kind of leads you right into it. Obviously, one of the most, iconic pieces of music, guitar and drum and everything, ever in music. Everyone knows it. I love the lyrics to this song. And it's interesting to listen to some of their live performances because the lyrics in some of those videos are completely different. You could tell they were still fine-tuning the lyrics. But the lyrics that they landed on in this song, in this version of the song that they recorded, fantastic. I love it. It's one of the great anti-war anthems ever created. And it's kind of interesting if you look at Black Sabbath. You have in Black Sabbath the song, you have "Oh no" and the "God please help me," and then in this song you have the "Oh Lord yeah." It's kind of like an interesting offset, and they're both the opening songs to both albums, and they kind of have that sort of interesting juxtaposition in terms of how they're using it and the tone of it and everything. This is great. And we're coming up to probably my favorite part of like the whole song, lyrics wise, everything. It's so relevant, isn't it? So Black Sabbath doesn't always get the political. They get the most political in this album than any other albums, but it's something great that they kind of have in their back pocket that they come back to, and it works. And you got to think about the time. This is Vietnam. Like Vietnam's going on in the world, and sure, I mean, they're based in England. They're not necessarily an American band, or they're not an American band at all. But to put out this song in this time, to really have this clear stance, this anti-war anthem, it's fantastic. It's like an absolute takedown of the people in power. And if you really look at War Pigs, what that is saying about sort of the people in charge, the people who are taking the poor and sending them out into war to die for their own profits, it's such a great visage that they create in the imagery and everything. And it's really all starts from that initial idea, War Pigs, and what that sort of conjures in your head when you hear it, and what that says about the people who are instigating these wars. Out of all the songs, because on Paranoid, I think you have the most songs that became super popular. Like Iron Man, everyone knows Iron Man, or at least has heard of it at some point. Most people know Paranoid, and War Pigs plays a lot on the album. I would say out of the popular Black Sabbath songs, the ones that really broke into the mainstream, War Pigs is the most uniquely Black Sabbath. In that Paranoid is kind of... I like Paranoid. I have an interesting history with Paranoid, which I'm sure I'll talk about in my video about Paranoid. But I have an interesting history with it, because I disliked it for a while, because I just thought, oh, that's just a popular Black Sabbath song. But when you listen to it, while I like it very much now, it's one of those songs where you could tell it has a radio feel to it. You could see how this is one that would kind of have mass appeal. And Iron Man is sort of similar in that you could tell how that would have mass appeal. War Pigs more doesn't. War Pigs more has the long Tony solos, and you have like this sort of interesting structure, has very clear stances politically, especially for the time, and it's very interesting to me that this is one of those songs that sort of broke through into the mainstream, became as popular as it was. And so I think with Iron Man and Paranoid, those were more songs that they were made to kind of be these sort of mass appeal songs, or maybe not necessarily directly made to be that, but that sort of works in their favor. With War Pigs, I feel like it's not really crafted in that sense, and yet it kind of broke through anyway, which speaks to just the quality of the song. It's really the quality of the song that propelled it forward. It's a longer song too. I believe Iron Man and Paranoid are both like more in the 4-minute range, and this is like 7-8 minutes long. So for it to be like on the radio and playing a lot, that's really that's something that they should be proud of, that the song broke through the way that it did. And it really is just a great introduction to the album. It's a great first song for the whole album. It really kicks you off with like it's really like a kick in the gut, and it's like, all right, let's get going, and then that kind of propels you through the whole album. And you can hear Tony has sort of refined a little bit more what he's doing with his solos, especially with something like Warning or Behind the Wall of Sleep. You just sort of have this long form instrumental, which you do have that in War Pigs, but I feel like Tony sort of almost tightened it up a little bit, so it's not as much long form, but he still has these long periods where it's his sort of guitar work that's the focus. I love this little bit. This is a great bit. Build up, build up. Yeah. That's a great song. I love War Pigs. I don't know where it would fall in terms of like a top 10 list or anything like that, but I just think War Pigs is great. Politically, it's strong and it's clear and it has such power to it. Politicians hide themselves away. They only started the war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave that for the poor. It just has such power and strength to it. And it's a great introduction to the album. It's a great lead-in. I just think overall, War Pigs is just such a great song. Again, I don't know necessarily where it'd fall, if it's in a top 10 or not. I know for a lot of people, it's one of their top favorite songs. I think there are some other ones that would kind of edge over it for me personally, but I love this song. I think it's fantastic. So my question to you is, what are your thoughts on War Pigs? Do you agree with a lot of people that it's one of your top tier favorite Black Sabbath songs? Or are you like me where you love it and you think it's fantastic, but wouldn't necessarily quite make like a top 5, and you'd have to really think about if it's in a top 10 or not? What are your thoughts on the overall Paranoid album that we're going to be going further in depth as we go to every single song on this album? Leave all of your thoughts in the comment section below. Once again, I'm Nathaniel Molnar. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, please. And you can check out the podcast version of the first album, all of my thoughts, all my reactions and commentaries. It's all compiled in one podcast episode, which you can find on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as on the YouTube channel. So until we talk about Paranoid, which is up next, thank you for watching.